watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is here. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, Kent.
And Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is alongside. Welcome, Jim.
Gentlemen.
Jim, two Alton lawmakers, Senator Bill Hayne, Representative Dan Beiser, say they would like to see a referendum held on whether or not same-sex marriages should be legalized in Illinois. Are we going to see the opportunity for people to vote on the issue, or is the legislature and the governor going to decide that matter?
I suspect, and this is only my suspicion at this point in time, because the Senate voted on this issue on Valentine's Day, which everybody saw kind of as an appropriate or inappropriate, depending on your viewpoint, day to vote on the legislation. The Senate passed it, not by a huge margin, but I think it was 34-21 or something like that. But comfortable margin. Predominantly endorsed by the Democratic Party, which is certainly in charge in the House as well. Not uncommon for the more conservative downstaters to have more reservations about same-sex marriages, which is kind of what prompted Hayne and Beiser to go this direction. But I think the House will call it, and I think it will pass. As I said, the Senate voted on it on the 14th. We are now at the 19th, and the House has not taken up the question as yet. Hayne and Beiser, I think, rightly thinks that we should open it more to the voices of the people of the state and not just leave it to the legislature to decide. In many states, that is what has happened. It has gone to voter referendum rather than just being passed in the legislature and gone on through as legalization. I don't think that this will go to a voter referendum. I think the House will pass it. I don't think it will pass by a huge margin, but I do believe it'll pass.
And the governor will sign it.
The governor's already indicated he would sign it. If he got the bill, he would sign it, and has said so on numerous occasions. I think the vote will be close in the House, but I don't think that the supporters of same-sex marriage, many of which are very strong supporters of the Democratic Party, want to necessarily see it go to a voter referendum. I think we would say, as we have before, the more conservative southern half of the state would vote against it. The more liberal northern part of the state would probably endorse it. I don't think those supporters want to see it to go to a voter referendum. They want it to go ahead and be passed by the House and signed by the governor.
Pat, Senator Bill Hayne, Representative Dan Beiser would like to see voters given the opportunity to decide whether or not same-sex marriages should be legalized in Illinois. Will that happen, or will the legislature and governor make that decision?
Well, as Jim points out, the first step will be to see what the legislature does. It passed the Senate 34-21 on almost a party line vote. Now, Senator Hayne, of course, did not vote for it. I think the pundits in Springfield believe it's less likely to pass the House than the Senate, which isn't to say that it won't, but it won't have the easy time. And again, the governor is a certain signature if the thing does pass. Illinois would be the 10th state, plus the District of Columbia, to allow it. It would be the first Midwestern state to do it by legislation. It is legal in Iowa because of a court decision, not because of something the legislature did. The Midwest being more conservative generally than the coasts. It raises the question of the word marriage. We have civil unions in Illinois which confer, I guess, pretty much all the same rights upon same-sex couples as they would have with the word marriage, as far as the state can go. Now, until that's done on a federal basis where you have income tax advantages and all the rest that goes with the word marriage, it won't mean as much to couples, to same-sex couples. But passing the word marriage and attaching the word marriage to a civil union in Illinois won't change the federal aspect at all. And as far as I know, it won't change the state aspect much either. The question seems to be mostly, do you allow same-sex couples to use the word marriage? And I know it's a very emotional thing for many of them who'd like to be able to say married, not just civilly united. It's also a very emotional thing for a lot of people who see marriage as a function of religion and church rather than state. And I think if you go back into deep enough history, marriage probably was more a function of religion and church than it was of state. I wrote a column very much in support of the civil union bill. I think it only makes very good sense to allow everybody the same rights, no matter whom they love. I think that's just a reasonable thing. I'm less sold on the marriage aspect, not because I don't agree with it personally, but because I can understand where people might have understandable frustrations, want to draw the line at the use of the word. I think if it got to a constitutional referendum, it very likely would pass a sort of defense of marriage thing, because I think even a number of people who support the concept, again, might give the opposition the use of the word.
The one concern that I do have about it was one of the amendments to the bill, which I believe was struck down, though I would have to research that and didn't get a chance this morning, is in the bill there was a paragraph that basically indicated that a house of worship or a religious institution could be sued if they refused to perform a marriage of same-sex individuals. There I have a problem. There, as Pat pointed out, so many people still traditionally tie the word marriage with the religious ceremony. We all know deep down that it's really, yes, it can be blessed by a preacher or a priest or a rabbi, but it's still a civil ceremony. My brother happens to be a Baptist minister. We had this discussion on this past Saturday, as a matter of fact. He can perform marriages in his church, of course, or anywhere else. But what gives him the right to sign the marriage document is he is licensed by the state to sign that document. It is a legal document, and he is licensed by the state to sign that legal document. So while it may be performed in a church or a synagogue or by a minister or a priest or a rabbi, it is still a civil ceremony with the additional blessings of that church. I would have a real problem if there is still a mandate in that bill that says my brother, the Baptist minister who happens to disagree with that teaching or that practice of same-sex marriage, as does his church, the Baptist church, does not believe in same-sex marriages. I would have a problem if they're going to open that up to a potential for lawsuits, that a Catholic church or a Baptist church or a Methodist church or a Jewish synagogue could be open to lawsuit if they said, no, that is against our teachings. We ought to be able to say, if you want to do it, the state says you can, but we don't have to perform the ceremony.
I've never heard that. That'd be absolutely breathtaking. That would be one step removed from the state telling the preacher what to preach in the pulpit.
Well, but those are similar.
Or demanding that any heterosexual couple be married too. I would presume a clergyman
Absolutely.
has the right to say, I don't want to be a part of these people marrying. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't know how you take that away from a church.
Yeah, but that was in an early draft. I believe it was taken out, though I don't know for sure.
Wow.
But talk about opening a real Pandora's box there. We've already had problems in this state for guest halls or hotels are saying that they didn't want to rent to same-sex renters. Imagine the problems that would come about if Bob and Bruce or Judy and Diane went to their minister and said, we want you to perform this ceremony. And the minister says, no, I am not in favor of your union. And they're saying, okay, fine, we'll sue the church.
We need to take a break. We have more Metro Talk after this.
Welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check in with the Exercise Science Program and Shane Halligan.
Have you ever thought to yourself, I just don't have enough time to exercise? Well, here's a few ideas to get you more active from the comfort of your own home while enjoying some of your favorite TV shows. Your typical TV show has 4, 5, 6, even 7 2-minute breaks, which allows for 15, 20 minutes worth of activity. And the activity doesn't have to be very bold or very difficult, but just not wasting that time sitting idly can make all the difference in your health. Movements that use body weight, such as push-ups, sit-ups, dips or wall squats, or even if you have a bottled water and you want to do arm curls or a lateral raise, these are ways to better fitness. With that in mind, enjoy your show and become more fit.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
My cell phone number and John's cell phone number. Hey, pretty. And number of the restaurant where we're going to be. And I've left you my pager number too, just in case, because you never know. John, you have the gift?
The odds of a babysitter calling
Now, listen, I also
911,
told the neighbors that you were gonna
1
be
in
here, so if
1,400.
anything should happen, please don't hesitate.
The
to
odds of
call
a child
back.
being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 150. You know the odds of autism. Now learn the signs. Go to autismspeaks.org.
Good nutrition can lead to great things. Find out how a healthy lifestyle can help your child succeed.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader and Pat Gowan are here. Jim, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon has announced that she's not going to run again for the Lieutenant Governor's job. The bottom line is she trying to distance herself from Governor Quinn, or is she preparing for a different office?
Yes. I think she's probably doing a little bit of both. I think even in her announcement that she would not run again, she indicated that she was not stepping away from public life. She indicated that at some point in time she was sure that she would be candidate for another office. She didn't say which one. A lot of people are guessing that she would be interested in the seat now held by Lisa Madigan, the Attorney General, State's Attorney General. A lot of people think that at some point in time Lisa Madigan is going to possibly run for governor, but certainly something other than the position she's held for 9 years, 8 years, 9 years, something like that. And there may be workings going on in the background here that Lieutenant Governor Simon may know what the long-term plan is for Lisa Madigan and is basically priming herself for that now. But and I do think that Sheila Simon is probably going. I'm not so sure I'd like to be in this hornet's nest as Lieutenant Governor in the mess that we're in with this state. So I think maybe she is distancing herself somewhat from Governor Quinn, but I think it's more a positioning statement of she's going to run for something else, and she wanted to go ahead and allow the governor, should he choose to run again, which we think he will, to start looking for another candidate, and it's not going to be her.
Pat, Lieutenant Governor Simon says she's not going to run again for the Lieutenant Governor's spot. Is she gearing up for a different office, or is she trying to distance herself from the governor?
A touch of history. She didn't run for the job to begin with, actually, because she was selected after a pawnbroker in Chicago many thought the Democratic Party thought were unworthy, won the nomination, and was finally convinced to leave the ticket, or Quinn would have been stuck with him as a running mate. What has now happened, it's changed even more since that time. They came to her, by the way, and asked her, a law professor at SIU Carbondale, would you run with Quinn? And she agreed. Daughter of Paul Simon and Jean Simon, state representatives. Paul went on to a stellar career as Senate, U.S. Senate, and presidential candidate. Anyhow, she accepted that the party's request. Now that's put her in a state office, and it's a good platform to do something else. The law has changed. Now you no longer will run in the primary separately as a lieutenant governor candidate. You will run as a running mate of the governor, as a partnership to begin with, to keep that kind of disaster from happening again. Which means, A, I'm not certain Quinn would pick her. He may have whispered in her ear, look, I would do better maybe with someone from Chicago, maybe someone of color, maybe a black woman. A lot of pundits think he would benefit from that on the ticket. So he might be cutting her loose anyway. We don't really know. He's feigning unawareness of her motives, but who knows in the back rooms of politics. That may be part of it. Bob Custer left the Lieutenant Governor's Office Board. Dave O'Neill left the Lieutenant Governor's Office Board. Lieutenant governor has essentially no powers because there's no constitutional provision to replace one who leaves, so you can't put any power in those hands because you can't be sure there even will be one. State ought to do away with the office. A lot of people agree with that. It's a big waste of a couple $1 million a year. I doubt that she'd want to stay there very long because it's just a complete waste of her time. Unless Quinn drops dead, there's really nothing to do. So I can understand why she'd want to get rid of it, which then becomes the question of where does she go. If Lisa Madigan, the Attorney General, runs for governor against Quinn, as some people think that she might do, she will sacrifice the Attorney General seat, and that would be a pretty good fit for a former law professor. So Sheila Simon would be a good fit for that. If Lisa Madigan doesn't do it, Dan Rutherford, the state treasurer, is making all kinds of noise about running for governor. He may sacrifice the treasurer's job to run for governor. There would be an open state office for Sheila Simon to take to position herself. Then she wouldn't have to run on Quinn's shirt tails. I mean, one of the problems if she stays as a lieutenant governor and she does run with Quinn is they might lose it, and she's out of it. It isn't like it was before. If you won the primary in your own name, there's no election in her own name at all. If she runs for attorney general or treasurer, at least she gets the vote she gets. She wins or loses on her own name and not somebody else's. So I can see why that would be attractive. So I couldn't be less surprised that she's pushing that aside.
We need to take a break. We have more Metro Talk coming up.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis. Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program and WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year mass comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup Substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album. It's called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
Mom!
What?
You can't find Ichabod.
What?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you.
Whatever we deny or embrace, for worse or for better, we belong.
Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people. Connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader's here along with Pat Gowan. Pat, leaders of the state employees unions are saying that it's time to raise taxes to help fund the pensions. Are they correct? Will we see a tax increase to help fund the pension situation?
They had a big meeting that was a summit that they intended public officials to go to. Quinn went and left without having much to say. I believe it was Tom Cross from the Republican side and the Senate went and spoke a little bit about it afterward. I guess this is AFSCME and AFL-CIO affiliated unions otherwise who I guess were making noises like they would consider a 2% increase in their contribution to pensions if they could get a loophole-free guarantee that the state would fund its part of the public pensions, which are now about $95 to $100 billion in arrears. The legislature and the governor have been working on plans, but they've sort of been on parallel tracks. They really haven't been speaking together very much, the employee side and the government side. You may recall it a week or two ago, House Speaker Mike Madigan made news by sending a letter in response to an invitation to the summit, essentially saying, you guys haven't been part of the solution so far, I want to meet with you, sorry. Would welcome your cooperation, but I'm not going to be there. So it was regarded that he may have snubbed them. As I understand, what they're talking about in increased taxes probably has more to do with closing what they say are some loopholes in some kinds of taxes. They'd like to tax electronic entertainment, so if you download a book on your Kindle or a movie on your iPad or something, you might pay a tax for that. One of the taxes they proposed would be that the tax on the purchase of a car, the sales tax, would apply to the full price of the car, not just to the difference between the price of the car and the trade-in of the car. So they're talking about taxes that may not be applied to everybody all the time, but that probably would come out and bite some people sometimes, and it might not, that wouldn't be like a sales tax or an income tax necessarily, something that you'd pay all the time. How they're going to reconcile these things, I don't know. Their position is that the cuts in pension benefits that have been talked about in Springfield do not comport with the Constitution, which says you can't cut the benefits already earned. And they're raring for a fight. If the legislature cuts their benefits, you're sure to see a court fight over the constitutionality of it. They're saying, why don't we work together, avoid a constitutional fight, and find a way to do this? And how that's going to be received in Springfield, ultimately, I do not know. The additional issue that's behind all this, of course, is that the increase of the state income tax from 3% to 5% is not permanent. It starts phasing back out. And there's a question about whether that will be retained. That'll be seen as a tax increase too. It's hard for me to imagine this fiscal shape the state of Illinois is in, that tax can be allowed to drop back down, but it's going to be a very ticklish position for politicians to deal with that, and that probably will have some effect on this as well.
You know what's scary about this, and then let's take these, backwards here, is the increase in the income tax is only generating about $600 million a year, short of what they thought or what the initial projections were. And the deficit's got no better. I mean, we're in a deeper hole as a state now than we were 2 years ago when that increase was passed. So that didn't fly very far. The only optimism that I have here, or that I had here, and I will rephrase that as had here, was the state employees were willing to negotiate something, we'll give something if you give us something back. And contrary to what Governor Quinn would say, probably the most powerful leader in the state, Mike Madigan, said, I'm not going to show up. You guys, as you said, Pat, you guys didn't play before, we're not going to play with you now. That kind of really draws a line in the sand here. I think if this goes to a constitutional fight, if the state tries to cut those benefits, it will go to a court fight, it will go to a constitutional fight. My guess is that the union will win that fight, and then what? So, because once they win in court, they may have been willing to give up an additional 2% before. But once they get that court order and that gavel falls and the judge says, no, that would be unconstitutional to change those, then they dig in their heels and they dig in strong.
And let's think that scenario through. So the legislature cuts their benefits and they file a lawsuit. Legislature says, okay, we're going to cut the benefits until the case is decided. They'll try to get a restraining order, and the court may or may not give them a restraining order. If they fail to get a restraining order, then the state can simply cut their benefits and lose the case 3 years, 5 years, 8 years down the road, however long it takes, and say, well, we don't have the money for that either, so you can stand in line behind the other creditors. I mean, that would be a real hardball position on the part of the legislature if, in fact, it could feel fairly confident that the courts wouldn't stay it. And given what the Constitution says, it might not be that hard to find a judge that says, no, you can't enforce the cuts until the thing's been adjudicated. But that would just be a further mess. You'd have all the issues now, plus the additional acrimony.
And the retroactive.
And plus the additional acrimony of a court fight, plus the costs of waging and defending a court fight that really benefits nobody, and especially not the taxpayers. So it's upsetting as a taxpayer to see that they aren't doing more to try to get together to fix this problem. And the legislature's back out of session, guys, in about another 3 months. And I'm not seeing anything that suggests to me that they're getting any of this fixed.
Well, the people that are going to be most impacted by this, and these state workers are those as well, are the taxpayers. Because the taxpayers are going to get the short end of this stick, no matter what happens. I agree with you on the tax, on the increase in the income tax that was supposed to sunset in 14, I think, 14 or 15.
It scales back.
Yeah,
first.
it scales back and then it ultimately sunsets. I don't think there's any way in the world that will be back down. I think it will be reinstituted. Again, the state is not making any progress in what was supposed to be a short-term increase in the income tax to start digging us out of this hole. They haven't made a dent in it. It's gotten worse. I think the 5% income tax is permanent.
Well, and we were in a hole going into the recession. The recession, while technically over, still has terrible aftershocks in the economy, and that the only real solution for the state government is enough economic growth where you end up having more money on which you can apply the taxes you've got and get things back on their feet. But recovery is just dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. Springfield's dragging behind it.
And if the economy has showed signs of improvement in the rest of the country, the unemployment rate in the state of Illinois is still about 2 points higher than it is nationwide. So some other states may say that they have come out of the recession, but I don't see it in the state of Illinois.
Jim, you brought up an interesting point a moment ago. You said that House Speaker Michael Madigan basically drew a line in the sand when dealing with the union, or the unions. Those unions have been some of his loyal supporters in the past.
I think the attitude may, and I can't speak for Michael Madigan, of course, and we're not exactly on each other's Christmas card list, but I don't think that he thinks he needs the union support anymore. This is a guy that's held this seat for 27 of the last 29 years, I believe. The unions may have put him there initially, but I don't think Mike Madigan believes that he needs anybody anymore to get reelected, and he doesn't need anybody anymore to reinstitute him as Speaker of the House.
Well, we say sometimes when a moderate Republican is running that what's the Tea Party going to do? Support a Democrat? They got to support the moderate Republican. It works the same way. What are the unions going to do? Support the Republicans? They're stuck with him. Whether he does what they want or not, he's still closer to their heart than the Republican Party is.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader with The Telegraph has been here, along with Pat Gowan from the Post-Dispatch. We'll see you next time.